Welcome back to my basement, and it's time for another episode of the Torchinsky Files. This week I have something I think pretty interesting. I was digging around through, again, the piles of old crap that I've got lying around everywhere here, and I found some brochures for something that's actually pretty fascinating, and it's something that we don't really think all that much about today, really. It's something called the ESV, or the Experimental Safety Vehicle Project, that was going on in America in the 1970s. Basically, cars used to be death traps. Cars from the 50s and 60s with metal dashes and steering wheels that would puncture your sternum and no crumple zones, and they were just gore fests when it came to an accident. And things didn't really change until well into probably the early 1980s that you actually started to get cars where your chances of coming out of a wreck in something other than, you know, what looks like a bowl of chili would be greater. And that's when we first started to see real energy absorbing bumpers and crumple zones, and then a little later on we got airbags. Then in the 90s we had some active systems, and then today, of course, cars are really remarkably safe. Now, one of the big reasons why this change happened was because of this ESV program. Around 1965, there was a New York State project called the Safety Car Project, and there was a Senator, Edward Speno, and he was one of the people who got the project going. Basically, by 1970 is when the official federal government project started in conjunction with the Department of Transportation, and you actually had the ESV project. The standards that were required to make one of these ESV cars were incredibly high. So, for example, you had to keep passengers alive in a 50-mile-an-hour head-on collision. It had to withstand side impacts up to 30 miles an hour, a 75-mile-an-hour rear impact, which is insane if you think about it. They also wanted it to be able to stop from 60 miles an hour to 0 in 155 feet, which is really pretty good. And it had to survive 2 complete rollovers at 60 to 70 miles an hour. And it had to be able to, and this is my favorite one, execute a 180-degree turn at 70 miles an hour without rolling over. Apparently they had this idea that America was just this nation of stunt drivers doing jumps over bridges and all kinds of crazy shit like that, because these are insane requirements. Now, companies from all over the world were invited to participate here, so it wasn't just American companies. And it wasn't even just car makers. You had companies like Fairchild and AMF, who was used to making like sports equipment and other kinds of heavy machinery, just because I guess they thought it was an interesting engineering challenge and they thought there was money to be made there. MG made one in a way to get around people driving drunk. They had, on the dashboard, you actually had to play like a little Simon game, you know, like different colored lights and sounds would light up, and you had to do like the memory thing of do them back in the right order. So they did that to see if you were too drunk to drive. They figured if you could play a little game of Simon, you're probably fine for driving wherever you're gonna go. I actually have 2 of the era pamphlets from some of these safety cars. So the first one is from Toyota, and Toyota's safety car is actually really cool looking. Most other companies were making big cars, big 4-door sedans, because that was going to be a little easier. Toyota decided to go with a smaller car, but you can see some interesting choices they made. Huge bumpers that were on these massive shock absorbers and could absorb impact, huge side marker lights for visibility and big signal lights, and you had all kinds of interesting safety features technically on the car. So for example, there was they didn't call them airbags, they called them, it was a gas bag system. So it was a gas bag system that inflated basically like an airbag. It's like a big cubicle airbag, and it was triggered with a radar type system as well. Way, way ahead of its time. This is from the early 70s, and they were using already radar range finding to check distances, just like modern cars are using today as part of driver assist systems. It's pretty remarkable. The inside, as you can see, had everything was padded. There was this massive bolster between the seats. It's padded steering wheel system, which I guess was housing the gas bag setup. A very early form of stability control, using these primitive computers to kind of calculate, you know, if things were skidding out of control, how to compensate for that using the rear wheel brake modulation. It's a fascinating little car. And again, this is just one of many. I also have, and this one I really like, is Volkswagen's pamphlet. So Volkswagen's safety car, I think is especially interesting because very Volkswagen, traditionally, they were using a rear engine design. This was from 1972. Basically, this was a Type 4 VW engine, the kind used in the Volkswagen Type 4s and later in the buses, and then the Porsche 914. In a lot of ways, this might be the most advanced rear-engined air-cooled VW ever designed and built, because it's a big sedan, rear engine, 2 trunks. It's under the floor in the back, so you have a trunk in the rear and a trunk in the front. It's a packaging triumph. The packaging is fantastic. It's like the old Type 3 and Type 4 ideas just taken to an extreme. Plus, it has, they decided not to go with an airbag solution, and they're using these active seatbelt systems that include a knee belt that somehow pops out. I'm not really sure. They describe it as like popping out from behind the fabric. I don't really quite understand how it's working, but it's using gas-fired pistons that tighten everything in the event of a wreck to keep everybody in place. They've also got a stability control system. Basically, they have a computer that checks for crosswinds, and it adjusts the steering accordingly. It's basically early lane keeping, except instead of using visual cues about lane markers, they're feeling if the car is actually shifting because of wind and keeping things straight. This is way, way advanced for 1972. They also had the automated belts that would become popular in the 80s. You'd open the door and they'd kind of move out of the way, and then you'd sit down and they go and they lock into place around you. This was a really remarkable car. The reason our cars today are as safe as they are is because of all the work that was done by, of course, the ESV cars. So the next time you're feeling safe in your car and you feel pretty good and you're not really worried about turning into just custard in your next wreck, you should take a moment and think back and thank the ESV program and all the companies that made these ridiculous but amazing and incredibly forward-thinking cars at the time, because really, they're why you're safe in your car today. All right, thanks everybody for coming out. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you soon.
And start talking about the safety regulations that were about to come into effect and how they were going to ruin the aesthetics of automobiles. That because of safety regulations, ugly cars were going to be the result. Mm-hmm. And I was one of those, what are they talking about? I am now in the middle of the car business, and safety and beauty have nothing to do with each other, no correlation at all. And it really annoyed me that people were saying that. So I decided I was going to build the safest car in the world, and it was going to be the most beautiful car in the world. It just got under my skin. At the same time, at that time, I had 3 kids, 3 boys, and every Saturday we would watch cartoons. And in one of the Saturday morning shows was a show called 1999: A Space Odyssey. Now, this was in the late 60s. So 1999 was a long way away. But in the beginning of this program, every Saturday, a car would silently come up to the screen and the doors would open up electrically. And I went, oh, I have to have that. I have to have that. Why? I have no idea. Something hit me that every Saturday for those 15 seconds I was there watching, something attracted me about the doors that pushed me to say, well, that would certainly be beautiful, and if you do it right, it would not stick into traffic when you open the door, so it would be a safety aspect of it that I could, and I went down the road of how to build the safest car on the road.
And one of the misconceptions about a gull wing door is people see it going out like this for some reason and protruding. And in fact, one of the reasons the gull wing door was put on the car was for safety reasons. We actually would pull the car into, it's about this far away from another car. And of course, you could not open the door of the other car and get out because the other car's door was at least this thick. So it was only 2 inches. Our car went like this, did not go out, it went straight up like this. So in that same distance, you could not get out of another car, we could actually get out of our car. Which meant if you were coming into traffic, you couldn't open the door into traffic, you'd be opening your door away from traffic. So again, it was for beauty, but it was also for safety.
So here's my question. Does this seem like kind of tight parking to you? I don't know, what do you think? Let's try this. Malcolm Bricklin, you're a genius.
Marshall Hobart went to Art Center College of Design in the Hancock Park area of Los Angeles. Herb Grass and Stuart Reed, the designer of the Myers SR, studied there as well. Marshall was hanging out at the beach with starlets and found a job at the Myers factory. By day he would take on design challenges for the car company, and by night he was developing his invention called the ski cart. When the Myers company went bankrupt, all of his design work and prototypes were seized by the receiver. His solution to get his invention was to find Bruce Myers to get him to help. Bruce couldn't help, but Marshall ended up helping Bruce with the fast track car.
And I would see Bruce later at some shows at Art Center, and we're still good friends, but we didn't really work on the Bricklin together too much. I did some automotive frame configurations with the bumper systems and that to help Bruce out. He was supposed to get some of that ready, so we worked together on some minor things, but then it was a test to see if I could speed up the body design of that car. And as I realized Bruce wasn't there, about the same time I was called into the One Design area, and I was introduced to Malcolm. It was impressive, and then asked to kind of be there, and it got around to, he just gestured toward the model. It was half completed, I'd say, and asked me if I could design that car. Do I remember the quote? And I was a little staggered and a little nervous, and sort of muttered out, "Yes, I can," something like that. And there was some little laughter at my reaction. I was young then, and pretty overwhelmed by this, and it seemed to be on. And he would then say to Tony Kopp, the second man there under Malcolm, who would be my boss immediate, we'll take Marshall in there and work out the money. I remember how that was a great sound. So that happened, and I was on it the next day doing little sketches. And I wasn't doing it like the school taught. I was doing little stationary-sized drawings, and I just put car shapes down as fast as I could think them up. Remember, number 3 is what they picked, and that's what happened. Dick Dean was a famous figure too. Bruce Myers and Malcolm Bricklin, and Dick Dean comes in. This was like a fantasy. So I was just taking it all in. The design was picked by that time, and they were going to put Dick on the work of the large pattern. So he was making a big wooden box and putting foam all over it. Out there at Newport Beach, we were all of the surfboard generation, so we weren't like the clay cars in Detroit. This was going to be like a large votive boat hull or a surfboard, and so in foam I started carving the body after the sketch was done. I don't remember, it took much more than a week probably of yardstick and hand tools. It wasn't anything like Detroit technology, and you could see a car there. And what I heard was he came in with potential investors, and they're pretty dazzled with this little shape, and it was off and running. Wouldn't know much about the Bricklin for some time. Don't have the time down right now, but it went back to Detroit, and I suppose I heard some rumors, but wasn't sure. But suddenly there was this broadcasting of this new car, and I was just stunned. So pretty excited that I had a part in it.
In Southern California, Dick Dean is known as the master of chops, a builder of fantasy cars for Hollywood. Perfect credentials for Malcolm Bricklin and his new sports car. When he meets Dean, Bricklin already has a drawing. This is the car he wants Dean to make.
I got blocks of urethane foam. I went ahead and started carving the car as close to the pictures I can do, and it was a very secret project. I mean, you had to be really a good friend of Malcolm before he'd bring you back and let you see it. He had a little nervous feeling about somebody wanting to destroy his creation.
In just 90 days, the Grey Ghost, as it is dubbed, is done. To raise the money to turn his model into a prototype, he shoots this film of the car. And with Dean's help, he ships the Grey Ghost east to Philadelphia for a critical meeting with the First Pennsylvania Bank.
The instructions were that he would come out and, I would open the hood, open the door, open the trunk. Then if he went like that, I drove it away as far as I could before it fell apart.
Thanks to the Grey Ghost, Bricklin raises close to $1 million.